Cordy, and yesterday myself and Leanna we started watching Loki, the new series from Marvel, and wouldn't say it was, I wasn't marvelled by it. Sorry, it's early, but yeah, I would say it was a little bit kind of subdued. The performances were a little bit kind of held back, restrained. I guess you could call it low key. The intro you were looking for, Jim, is it? Right, anyway, this video I wanted to talk about other options than the Helix within the Line 6 world, and this might seem stupid, but how it is that I think an HX Effects and an HX Stomp might be advantageous in some ways, and some of the things that this can do that a Helix cannot. Of course, the most obvious thing is that these two together are smaller than a Helix, obviously. I'll just smash those together. Now, there are a couple of disadvantages to this. So the way that I would be running these two things, as you saw in the intro, is in series. So I would run either the HX Effects into the HX Stomp or the HX Stomp into the HX Effects. I wouldn't use the 4-cable method, just because by using these two together you're introducing two stages of analog to digital, digital to analog conversion. Effectively, I think, speaking to someone who would know much better than me, the latency would be about 4 milliseconds versus 2 milliseconds on the Helix, because you've got two devices doing those conversions. One other disadvantage is that you wouldn't have access to the true spillover of the Helix, because that's got two chips and you can do the true spillover thing, which I've done another video on, I think, or maybe I still need to do that video, possibly, can't remember. But there are advantages. Here's one clear advantage: you can have two loopers simultaneously with this. In the Helix itself you can only have one looper at a time. So whether that's a shuffling looper or 6-switch or one button, the looping is limited to one per preset. Obviously you can have a looper on the HX Effects and you can have a looper on the HX Stomp, so you can have two. So the backing track that you saw me playing over in the intro was actually started off, I'll show you in the video now, I guess. I start a shuffling loop and then I kick in an additional looper to record over that smaller chunk, and in that way you can be really creative with these. That's one of my favourite things to do with the Helix stuff at all, is to have two loopers going at the same time. I find that really fun. The other thing that you could have going on is that you can switch. So you know, like on the Helix you've got two paths and those are switched with each other, whereas with the HX Stomp and the HX Effects you could effectively have one path switch and the other path stay the same, if that makes sense. So I could have this doing the amps and cabs, feeding into the HX Effects potentially, and that might be the ideal way to do this actually, because then you get the impedance circuit. The way that I've been connected into the HX Effects like a pedal board, and then into the HX Stomp. You might want to consider doing it the other way around, so maybe the HX Effects deals with things like reverb, post loops and that sort of stuff, and also I guess it would make sense to have a 6-button looper on here you know, there's lots of ways that you could skin this cat if you're into animal cruelty. But what was I actually saying? But yeah, like I say, you could have the HX Effects doing kind of your post effects like posh reverbs, posh delays, and then you could have the HX Stomp switching things like, or you could even have the cabs on the HX Effects as well actually, and then you could have the HX Stomp switching presets between different combinations of dual amps. That'd be quite a powerful way to do things, and you wouldn't be able to do that, I doubt, a dual amp kind of preset with lots of delays and reverbs switching with true spillover, whereas because you wouldn't be switching the actual HX Effects preset, you could do that with this little combination. You have 8 blocks now on the HX Stomp. Before 3.0, was it 2.8? In the past there were 6 blocks, so this would have been an easier choice if they said, well, the Helix has 16 potential blocks, whereas the HX Stomp only had 6. Now it has 8, the HX Effects has 9, so whilst that is still less than the Helix, I think it's fairly easy to chew into all of that processing anyway. So I don't know about you, but personally I very rarely use more than 8 blocks on the Helix on one signal path. I find it a bit difficult, especially if you're using stereo and stuff. DSP wise, I find it a bit difficult to actually use all of those blocks up, if that makes sense. So, I don't know, have you got any other ideas? Maybe it'd be better just to go, there are some obvious advantages to the Helix, a bigger screen as well, and obviously you've got the mic in, you've got XLR out, you've got Variax input, you've got SB diff, you've got this dedicated power cab output. So there's obviously lots of stuff that you would be missing out on potentially, but I don't know if you're one of those people that doesn't use those. If you've already got an HX Stomp and you're thinking, right, I've seen the poly pitch, I've seen the new reverbs and stuff, I'm finding them difficult to use in my existing presets, what would be my easiest way to expand and get basically the processing power of the Helix, but in another thing which isn't going to cost me loads of money? Potentially the HX Effects might be the place to look. I really enjoy it. I bought mine second hand for 280 quid or something. But you've got the stribble scripts, you've got extra buttons, and it's a really nice size. So I don't know, there's a lot to like about that particular setup, I think. Let me know in the comments if that would work for you. I actually geeked with this on Saturday. I was playing a bass gig and I was using the HX Effects, and it worked really, really well. And I do really like having those scribble strips and the colour coding and stuff. It just seems to work perfectly for me. I've gigged an HX Stomp lots of times, obviously. But those were some of my thoughts on that, and I don't know if it's a novel idea or not. Catch you in a bit. Maybe if you wanted to like and subscribe you could. Now here's some more playing. Cheers.